Pokemon is overall pretty weird when you take the time to think about it. There's a bunch of kids traveling the world fighting each other with creatures that are trapped inside of little balls. Yeah, pretty strange. But even by those standards, there's some things in the Pokemon world that just don't add up. The Pokemon world overall has some pretty stable lore, all things considered. Everything's established, and we know for the most part how things work. But sometimes that logic is flipped on its head. Take a look at Wooper. Cute little guy, right? Honestly, who doesn't love Wooper? Well, apparently God, because it has no arms or hands. So if you knock it over, it'll probably wiggle around frantically, but I don't know why you would. Are you a monster? Despite Wooper not having hands, it can use Ice Punch. Wooper. Punch. No hands. See the problem? Wooper can also learn Dynamic Punch and Power-Up Punch, and this isn't some sort of translation error either. All three of those moves in Japanese contain punch in their name. I sorta want to see what Wooper would look like in the anime using all of these moves. Does it just form an Ice Fist or something? Does it have Conqueror's Haki? We'll never know. But what I do know is that this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. I know you've heard of it. It has over 80 million downloads. I can't even count that high. The game has console-level graphics, all while still being on a mobile phone, which is pretty insane. And the best part is that it's free to play, so you can download this game right now. With over 700 completely unique champions to collect and billions of ways to customize them, you're almost guaranteed to have a completely unique experience. There's also 15 factions you can join: orcs, dwarves, elves, the literal undead. At least one of them has to pique your interest. There's these bosses that you can face, but if you really want to put your skills to the test, you can face other players in PvP battle arenas. But if that still isn't what you want to do, Raid just recently added a new feature called the Hydra Clash, which is a competition against 4 other clans to see who can smack the Hydra boss the hardest. You can come up with all sorts of new strategies, and with new updates every single month, the gameplay is practically endless. I think the game is great if you want to play as creatively as you want. It's also just really convenient to hop into a game whenever you want. It couldn't hurt to install and just give the game a try. You can use my link or QR code to get a free starter pack to get this cool loot. Who doesn't like free stuff? Once you're in, come find me and join my clan. My name is TheRogueRenegade, and I'll see you guys there. Anyways, it doesn't just end with Wooper though. There's many other instances of Pokemon learning moves they clearly shouldn't be able to use. Ghastly can learn Ice Punch, and Shroomish can learn Focus Punch, despite both not having any hands. Elgium and Beheeyem can use Steel Wing, despite not having any wings. But this is probably because Steel Wing was TM51 in Generation 5, and Area 51 is known for being the McDonald's playpen for all aliens. Cryogonal can learn Attract, despite it being genderless, which means that it'll fail every single time. Alakazam, Primeape, and Goomy can all use Iron Tail, despite not having tails. So what's going on here? Well, in an interview, Sugimori says that during development, last-minute changes are made to a Pokemon's design, like adding a horn, removing a tail, stuff like that. And since the moves are already programmed, they either have to go back and edit them or just leave them how it is. This logic does line up though, as Beta Wooper has these little stubs, which albeit might not be the best for punching, but hey, at least it's possible. I don't know what the hell went wrong with Cryogonal though. Maybe it's a desperate romantic or something. And speaking of hopeless romantics, in the anime, we get to see Meowth's backstory. And in his backstory, he learns how to walk and talk like a human to impress a Meowth named Meowsy. After she calls Meowth a freak for his efforts, Meowth is left heartbroken. But do you notice anything strange? He had to learn how to walk upright, which means that Meowths are usually quadrupeds. And it's true. We can see Meowsy and the other Meowths walking on all fours. So how come every single Meowth in every Pokemon game is bipedal? Are they just all descendants of Michael? Meowth's Generation 1 sprite is sorta ambiguous, but Generation 2 and onwards, it's been shown standing on 2 legs. I would chop this up to the early days of the Pokemon anime having inconsistent lore, but in Pokemon Journeys, we see Meowth come face to face with another Meowth, and that Meowth is walking on all fours. It's really bizarre, and this isn't the only case of the anime having an effect on how a Pokemon behaves. Ditto's dumb little face is iconic, but it was never meant to exist. Anytime you see Ditto transform into another Pokemon in media, it retains the same face. The only place this doesn't happen is in the games, where Ditto is able to perfectly transform into any Pokemon, but this unique quirk that Ditto has was only meant to be a gag. In the Indigo League, Ash and friends meet this girl named Duplica, whose Ditto is having trouble transforming. It's able to transform everything except its face. And by the end of the episode, this issue gets resolved. So you would think it's a one-off thing, right? Oh no. Oh no, you'd be mistaken. This silly little quirk that only one Ditto was supposed to have infected every single other Ditto in existence, which is really strange because in the games, Ditto has never had this iconic little smile. The smile has most likely stuck around for so long because of marketing. Literally, all you have to do is take a pre-existing Pokemon, slap this stupid face on it, and call it a Ditto, and it'll sell like crazy. To be honest, I actually really like the Ditto gimmick though. It'd be really cute to see in games. I just wish they'd be a little bit more consistent. And speaking of inconsistencies, can Pokemon understand understand humans? We often hear people in the anime talking to Pokemon like they're people, and sometimes the Pokemon actually respond back with something that makes sense. Like if Ash were to ask one of his Pokemon where someone is, they lead them to whoever he's looking for. But other times in the anime, Pokemon are portrayed as not having a clue what you're saying to them, and they behave like how an animal would. I honestly kind of find the scenes where someone's talking to their Pokemon really cringy. It's sort of like how when a crazy cat lady's talking to their cat like it's a person that can understand what they're saying. Bargaining with your cat won't bring your husband back, Becky. Stop trying. And it makes even less sense when you take into consideration Pokemon moves. In a battle, you call out an attack to your Pokemon, and they're clearly able to understand what you're saying because they follow up with that attack. Otherwise, they'd look at you like you just ordered them make a rib or something. Seriously, who likes this thing? You could make the argument that it's like a dog trick, but that still doesn't explain how in the anime, Ash is able to explain to his Pokemon exact and precise strategies, like aim for the horn, avoid touching the ground, stuff like that. I just don't know why they keep switching from, oh yeah, Pokemon can understand humans perfectly fine, and Pokemon are creatures, why are you talking to one? Are you stupid? Pokemon categories are really strange to me. Many of them are named after real world animals, and your initial thought might be, oh, well, that's not so strange. That's just what they're based off of. And yes, but think about it in world. How do they know what a lizard is? They don't have lizards in their world, or birds, or cats. Those are known as Charmanders, Pidgeys, and Meowths. That's like going up to someone in real life who has no idea what Pokemon is and calling their dog a Growlithe. They're gonna have no idea what you're talking about. The examples for these categories go on, and it's kind of creepy. The butterfly Pokemon, the bird Pokemon, the snake Pokemon, the mouse Pokemon, the pig monkey Pokemon. That's 2! And this wasn't just a thing older Pokemon games did. They're still doing this. The ostrich Pokemon, the dog Pokemon, the mouse Pokemon, the duckling Pokemon. All of these categories raise so many questions. Questions that we're never going to get answers to. Is Pokemon post-apocalyptic? Are Pokemon just variants of real-life animals, rocks, and whatever else is out there? Hide this from MatPat before he starts tying up Game Freak employees and interrogating them. The Pokedex is the one filling out all of this, but it's still man-made. And there's some Pokemon that require man-made items to evolve, which begs the question, how do they exist in the wild? And how do you even figure this out? Did some guy in a lab keep tossing electronics at an Electabuzz until he got so pissed off it evolved? And since there is Pokemon that evolve using man-made objects, what other Pokemon are capable of evolving, but we just haven't figured out what item makes them? Hell, maybe the Burnheel does evolve something. Who's to say? Forced evolution does seem to be a thing. The red Gyarados at the Lake of Rage is said to be red because it was forced to evolve from a Magikarp, so it wasn't given any time to change its scales to blue, and as a result, kept its color scheme. And since this is the first canon and most likely only shiny Pokemon in the games, it means the lore we're given must be important. But that's all thrown out the window. The majority of shiny Pokemon don't retain their colors of their pre-evolutions. So, was Gyarados turning red purely a coincidence? Why would they go out of their way to explain it if it was? And if it wasn't, what would a real shiny Gyarados look like? One that wasn't forced to evolve. It's so strange that they would give a canon explanation for shiny Gyarados only to flush it all down the drain, just like my pet fish. Why is the subscribe button there? Starter Pokemon are notorious for being, well, Pokemon you start with. So you would think you would see them pretty often, right? Well, you'd be wrong. There's a strange lack of starter Pokemon, not only in the wild, but from NPCs as well. You would think that most trainers starting their journeys would have one, but they don't. So maybe only the rich and privileged get to have them. But even then, that doesn't make sense, since we aren't exactly the highest class citizens. I mean, Brendan and May literally had to be transported in the back of a truck. That isn't exactly screaming luxury now, is it? We've seen countless Pokemon with accessories and clothes, but are they a part of their bodies? It's weird to think that Sock and Throw's gi is fleshy. Or take Hitmonchan, for example. Are the boxing gloves its actual hands? What about a Pokemon like Komala and Tinkatink? Why are they born with those items? What goes on inside an egg? Or I guess the better question is, where do eggs come from? Of course, the obvious answer is breeding. But what's strange is that nobody knows where Pokemon eggs come from in the Pokemon world. Why is Pokemon going out of their way to hide this? They could just simply not acknowledge it at all, since I think the answer is pretty obvious. Or just outright say it, since I don't think creatures laying eggs is all too inappropriate, as long as they don't depict it as something weird. I mean, Yoshi gets away with it. Why can't Pokemon? He literally throws his unborn children at people. What the fuck, Yoshi? And things get even weirder with eggs, if you can believe it. Apparently, eggs aren't eggs. They're described as cradles and being egg-like, which is such a strange thing to elaborate on. Are there laws and regulations on eating Pokemon? Like, we know Slowpoke and Kinglers are being eaten, but what's stopping us from eating a Growlithe? Morality? In our world, it makes more sense. Dogs are taboo to eat because we bond with them and they love us back, whereas a fish probably has no idea where it is. Hurry up and order! But in the Pokemon world, you're capable of bonding with every Pokemon. I don't know. While it is tempting to eat Pokemon, I don't know if I could do it. They're like friends, and friends are not food. Anyways, here's a list of Pokemon that I would eat. Miltank. I want a nice Miltank burger. Extra rolled out, please. I love pie. An Appleton looks pretty appetizing. This is like the third time I've said this, but Tor chicken nuggets, make it happen. I've never had crab before, but oh my god, Kingler looks tasty. Alcremie. Do I really need to say more? It's the living embodiment of whipped cream. And Dax Bun. I love bread, and this dog is constantly loafing. Vanillux. Ice cream is one of my favorite foods. It's so good. I could keep going, but I think that's best for its own video. Point is, I have no idea where people in the Pokemon world draw the line. So many things don't add up, and it's so odd. And there's no telling if or when these oddities will be explained. Pokemon is so strange, but I guess the mysteries only fuel my desire to learn more about how the world works. Of course, if you've got any oddities of your own, feel free to drop them in the comments section for a possible part 2. Like the video, join the Discord, follow my socials, subscribe. Why are the Meryl plushies out of stock? Later.